The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the UES Defiance. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the large window, watching the distant suns twinkle in the darkness. His ship was 3 days out from Earth, exploring a new sector that human scouts had never visited before. Everything seemed normal and quiet. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been flying ships for the Earth Space Navy for 20 years. This mission was supposed to be easy. Just map some new star systems, check for planets that humans could live on and go home. Nothing dangerous or exciting. His crew was small but good. Lieutenant Amy Brooks sat at the pilot controls, her blonde hair tied back as she watched the navigation screens. She was young but skilled, and Jake trusted her to fly the ship anywhere. Chief Petty Officer Carlos Martinez worked at the engineering station, keeping their engines running smooth. He was a quiet man who could fix anything that broke. At the communications desk, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Harper monitored radio signals, from space listening for anything unusual. Jake walked back to his captain's chair and sat down. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. They were scanning the fourth planet in this system when Amy suddenly spoke up. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings on the sensors." Jake leaned forward. "What kind of readings?" Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Multiple contacts, sir. Very large ones. They just appeared on the edge of the system." Lisa turned from her station. "Captain, I'm picking up massive energy signatures. These aren't like any human ships I've ever seen." Jake felt his stomach tighten. They were far from home and alone. If these were hostile aliens, his small exploration ship would not be able to fight them. "How many contacts, Amy?" "I count at least 50 ships, sir, maybe more. They're huge, much bigger than anything we have." Carlos looked up from his engineering controls. "Captain, these energy readings are off the charts. These ships must be incredibly advanced." Jake stood up and walked to the main display screen. Red dots showed the position of the unknown ships. They were moving slowly but steadily toward the inner system, toward the UES Defiance. "Lisa, try to contact them. Use standard first contact protocols." Lisa nodded and began working at her station. "Broadcasting on all frequencies, Captain, using mathematical sequences and basic universal concepts." They waited. The bridge was very quiet now. Everyone watched the screen as the alien ships continued to approach. Jake had trained for first contact with alien species, but he had never expected it to actually happen. After 10 minutes, Lisa suddenly straightened up. "Captain, I'm getting a response. They're using our own communication frequency." A new voice filled the bridge. It was deep and cold, speaking perfect English with no accent. "Human vessel, you will maintain your current position. You will not attempt to flee or transmit any messages. Compliance is required." Jake felt chills run down his back. These aliens knew human language perfectly. They had been watching Earth. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Ship Defiance. We come in peace. We mean no harm to you or your people," the alien voice spoke again. "Your intentions are irrelevant. You will prepare to receive a representative of the HFY Dominion. You will show proper respect to your superiors." Amy whispered urgently. "Captain, more ships are appearing. I count over 200 now." Jake's hands were sweating. 200 alien warships against his single exploration vessel. There was no chance of escape or fighting. "We will receive your representative peacefully." An hour later, a small alien shuttle approached the Defiance. It was sleek and black, moving without any visible engines. Jake waited in the main airlock, with 2 security officers. The alien ship attached itself to their hull with a soft thud. The airlock door opened, and Jake got his first look at an alien being. The creature was tall and thin, over 7 feet high. Its skin was dark gray and smooth like leather. It had 4 arms and large black eyes that seemed to look right through Jake. It wore elaborate armor covered in strange symbols. "I am High, Commander Zalthek of the HFY Dominion," the alien said in that same cold voice. "You will take me to your command center." Jake led the alien to the bridge. His crew stared in shock and fear at their visitor. High Commander Zalthek looked around the bridge with obvious disgust. "Primitive," the alien said. "Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. Your species is young and weak." Jake tried to stay calm. "We are explorers, not warriors. We seek knowledge and friendship with other intelligent species." Zalthek made a sound that might have been laughter. "Friendship you do not understand. The Kethvar Dominion has ruled this galaxy for over 10,000 years. We have conquered 1,000,000 worlds. Every species we encounter has two choices: surrender or die." The alien walked to the main display and somehow activated it with just a touch. Images appeared showing massive fleets of warships, burning planets, and defeated alien races kneeling before Kethvar commanders. "We have never lost a battle," Zalthek continued. "We have never been defied. Lesser species exist only to serve the Dominion. This is the natural order of the universe." Jake felt sick looking at the images of destruction. "What do you want from us?" Zalthek turned those black eyes on Jake. "You will carry a message to your homeworld. Your species has 30 of your standard days to surrender completely. You will dismantle all military forces. You will accept Kethvar governors to rule your people. You will provide resources and labor as we require." "And if we refuse?" Jake asked quietly. "Then Earth and all human colonies will be destroyed. Every man, woman, and child of your species will die. Your civilization will be erased from existence. This is not a negotiation. This is notification of your fate." The alien commander turned and walked toward the airlock. "You have been warned. Do not test our patience. The Dominion's mercy has limits." After the alien left, Jake and his crew stood in stunned silence. Finally, Amy spoke in a shaky voice. "Captain, what do we do now?" Jake looked at the tactical display showing hundreds of alien warships surrounding their position. "We go home. We warn Earth, and we pray that someone much smarter than us can figure out how to save the human race." The UES Defiance turned toward Earth and began the long journey home, carrying the most important and terrifying message in human history. The UES Defiance burned hard toward Earth, pushing its engines to the limit. Captain Jake Morrison had not slept in 3 days. He sat on the bridge watching the star charts, counting down the hours until they reached home. Every minute that passed was another minute closer to the 30-day deadline the aliens had given them. Lieutenant Amy Brooks checked their position again. "Captain, we'll reach Earth in 18 hours at current speed." Jake nodded but said nothing. His mind kept replaying the encounter with High Commander Zalthek, the alien's cold voice promising death and destruction if humanity refused to surrender. The images of burned worlds and conquered species. Jake had seen the face of true evil, and it was coming for Earth. When the Defiance finally entered Earth's solar system, Jake immediately contacted Earth Defense Command. Within minutes, Admiral Patricia Lewis appeared on the communication screen. She was a stern woman with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. Jake had served under her years ago and respected her greatly. "Captain Morrison, your message said this was urgent. What's your status?" Jake took a deep breath. "Admiral, we have made first contact with an alien species. They call themselves the Kethvar Dominion. They have given humanity 30 days to surrender or they will destroy Earth." Admiral Lewis stared at him for a long moment. "Are you certain about this, Captain?" "Yes, ma'am. I saw their fleet. Hundreds of warships, each one larger than our biggest ships. Their technology is far beyond ours. They've been ruling the galaxy for 10,000 years. The Admiral's face grew pale. "Return to Earth immediately, Captain. I'm calling an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council." 3 hours later, Jake stood in the council chambers in Geneva. President Daniel Hayes sat at the head of a large table surrounded by military leaders, scientists, and government officials. Jake had just finished telling his story for the 3rd time. President Hayes was a tall man with kind eyes, but today he looked very old and tired. "Captain Morrison, in your opinion, are these aliens telling the truth about their military power?" "Yes. Mr. President, I've never seen anything like their ships. Our entire fleet wouldn't last 10 minutes against them." General Marcus Bell, head of Earth's ground forces, leaned forward. "How much time do we have left?" Jake checked his watch. 26 days, sir." The room fell silent. Finally, Dr. Helen Ward spoke up. She was Earth's top military scientist, a small woman with gray hair and thick glasses. We need to know more about their technology. Captain, did you record any sensor data during the encounter? Yes, ma'am. Everything is in the ship's computer. Dr. Ward nodded. I'll need to study that immediately. We also need to start Project Ironwall. President Hayes looked confused. What's Project Ironwall? Admiral Lewis answered. It's our emergency defense plan, Mr. President. We've been working on it for years, hoping we'd never need it. It involves moving our entire military into Earth orbit and preparing every defense we have. Over the next few days, Earth became like a giant anthill that had been kicked. Military ships from all over human space began arriving at Earth. Admiral Lewis worked 20 hours a day coordinating the fleet movements. Commander Ryan Torres led teams installing new orbital defense platforms around the planet. Captain Nina Foster organized the evacuation of civilians from major cities. Jake found himself promoted to admiral and put in charge of intelligence gathering. He worked closely with Dr. Ward, analyzing every piece of data they had collected. About the Kethavar ships, the news was not good. Their energy shields are incredibly strong, Dr. Ward explained during a briefing. Our conventional weapons won't even scratch them. Their plasma cannons can destroy our largest ships with a single shot. President Hayes rubbed his tired eyes. So what you're telling me is that we have no chance. Dr. Ward paused before answering. With conventional tactics, no, sir. We would need something completely different. That something different came from an unexpected source. Dr. Emma Price was a young physicist who worked at the university in California. She had been studying quantum mechanics when the crisis began. 3 days before the deadline, she called Earth Defense Command with an idea. Jake met with her in a small conference room. Dr. Price was nervous but excited, her red hair messy from working long hours in her laboratory. Admiral Morrison, I think I know why the aliens are so confident they'll win. Jake leaned forward. Go on, Doctor. They've been fighting the same way for thousands of years. Every species they've conquered has used similar technology and tactics. Energy weapons, deflector shields, standard military formations. But humans developed completely differently. What do you mean? Dr. Price pulled up a holographic display. Look at our weapons. We still use kinetic energy. Bullets, missiles, railguns. These are primitive by galactic standards, but they work on completely different principles than what the aliens expect. Jake began to understand. You're saying their defenses might not work against our weapons? Exactly. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, but a simple piece of metal moving at high speed? That might go right through. Dr. Ward joined the meeting and immediately saw the possibilities. We could modify our railguns to fire, specially designed penetrator rounds. If Dr. Price is right, we might be able to damage their ships. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Price showed them her quantum disruptor technology. I've been working on this for months. It sends out quantum interference patterns that disrupt electronic systems. If we can get close enough to their command ships, we might be able to shut down their communications. Engineer Dr. Kevin Stone was brought in to help design the new weapons. He was a practical man who had spent his life building things that worked. Give me 5 days and I can modify half our railguns. Give me 10 days and I can build quantum disruptors for our torpedo warheads. They only had 4 days left. Dr. Stone worked without sleep, leading teams of engineers and technicians around the clock. Captain Bobby Miller commanded the UES Freedom, the ship chosen to carry the first quantum disruptor torpedoes. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Wright prepared fighter squadrons for suicide attacks designed to confuse alien targeting systems. Commander Ashley Clark organized hit-and-run tactics using smaller ships. Meanwhile, intelligence reports were coming in from other human colonies. The aliens had not contacted any other worlds. They were focused entirely on Earth, apparently, believing that destroying humanity's homeworld would end all resistance. On the last day before the deadline, President Hayes called Jake to his office. The president looked exhausted but determined. Admiral Morrison, I've made my decision. We're not surrendering. Jake felt his heart racing. Sir, are you certain? These aliens will try to wipe out our entire species. President Hayes walked to the window and looked up at the sky. Jake, I've been thinking about this for weeks. What kind of message would it send if Earth, the birthplace of humanity, surrendered without a fight? What would that do to the human spirit? The president turned, back to Jake. Tomorrow I'm going to broadcast a message to the Kethvar Dominion and anyone else listening in the galaxy. Earth will not bow down. Humanity chooses to fight. Jake felt a mixture of pride and terror. The aliens won't expect resistance, sir. They've never faced it before. Then maybe it's time someone taught them what humans are really made of, President Hayes said firmly. That night, Jake stood on the observation deck of the orbital command station, looking down at Earth. The planet was surrounded by hundreds of human warships, their lights twinkling like stars. Tomorrow, they would face an enemy that had never been defeated. Most of them would probably die, but they would not surrender. They would show the galaxy that some things were worth fighting, for no matter the odds. The alien fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system exactly 30 days after their ultimatum. Admiral Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the UES Liberty as 500 massive Kethvar warships moved into formation. Each alien vessel was 3 times larger than humanity's biggest ship, their dark hulls gleaming with energy shields and weapon ports. High Commander Zalthek's voice filled the communication channels, cold and confident as before. Humans of Earth, your time has expired. You will surrender immediately or face complete destruction. This is your final warning. President Hayes responded from the Planetary Command Center. His voice was steady and strong. High Commander, this is President Daniel Hayes of Earth. We reject your ultimatum. Earth will not surrender. Humanity will fight for its freedom. There was a long pause. When Zalthek spoke again, his voice carried surprise and anger. Impossible. No species has ever refused the Dominion. You choose death over the honor of serving us? We choose to be free, Hayes replied simply. Jake stood on the bridge of the Liberty alongside Admiral Patricia Lewis, who had insisted on commanding the fleet personally. Around Earth, 400 human warships waited in defensive positions. It was every military vessel humanity could gather, but they looked tiny compared to the approaching alien armada. Lieutenant Amy Brooks, now serving as the Liberty's pilot, checked her instruments. Admiral Morrison, enemy fleet will be in weapons. Range in 20 minutes. Jake nodded and activated the ship's communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the right of every thinking being to live free. The aliens have never faced real resistance. Let's show them what humans can do when we're backed into a corner. Hundreds of voices responded across the fleet. Yes, sir. Ready to fight. For Earth. Admiral Lewis stood beside Jake, her face calm but determined. Jake, I want you to know it's been an honor serving with you. The honor's mine, Patricia. Let's make this count. The first shots came from the Kethvar fleet. Bright streams of plasma energy lanced across space toward the human ships. The alien weapons were incredibly powerful, destroying 2 human destroyers with direct hits. But many of the plasma bolts passed harmlessly through space where the aliens expected human ships to be. Evasive maneuvers, Jake commanded. The human fleet scattered, breaking formation, and moving in unpredictable patterns. This was not how space battles were supposed to be fought according to galactic military doctrine, but humans had never read that doctrine. Dr. Kevin Stone's modified railguns fired their first salvo. Instead of energy weapons, the human ships launched solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. The Kethvar shields, designed to deflect plasma and laser fire, offered no protection against simple kinetic energy. 3 alien ships shuddered as railgun rounds punched through their hulls. Atmosphere vented into space, and internal explosions lit up their dark surfaces. For the first time in 10,000 years, Kethvar warships were taking damage. High Commander Zalthek's voice roared across the communication channels. Impossible! Our shields are impenetrable. How are they harming our vessels? Captain Bobby Miller commanded the UES Freedom, the ship carrying Dr. Emma Price's quantum disruptor torpedoes. He waited until his ship was close to the alien command vessels before firing. Torpedoes away! Let's see if this crazy science actually works. The torpedoes looked like normal missiles to the aliens, who tried to shoot them down with defensive Fire. But several got through and detonated near the HFY command ships. Instead of explosions, the warheads released invisible quantum interference patterns. Immediately, the alien fleet's coordination began to fall apart. Communication systems failed. Navigation computers crashed. Ships that had moved in perfect formation for thousands of years suddenly found themselves blind and confused. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Wright led his fighter squadrons in attacks that made no sense to alien tactical computers. Instead of engaging in organized dogfights, the human pilots made seemingly random passes, fired their weapons wildly, then retreated in different directions. The HFY targeting systems, designed to predict logical military movements, could not track such chaotic behavior. Commander Ashley Clark coordinated hit-and-run attacks by smaller human ships. They would appear from behind asteroids or space debris, fire everything they had, then disappear again before the aliens could respond effectively. These tactics violated every principle of proper space combat, which was exactly why they worked. The battle raged for 3 hours. Human ships were being destroyed, but they were taking alien vessels with them. Jake watched the tactical display in amazement. They were actually holding their own against a superior enemy. "Admiral," Amy called out, "the alien command formation is breaking up. Their big ships are having trouble communicating with each other." Jake saw the opportunity immediately. "All ships, concentrate fire on the alien command vessels. Target their communication arrays." The human fleet focused their modified weapons on the largest HFY ships. Railgun rounds and quantum disruptor torpedoes tore into vessels that had never been seriously damaged in battle. One massive alien dreadnought lost power completely and began drifting helplessly through space. High Commander Zalthek's personal flagship was taking heavy damage. For the first time in his long military career, he faced the possibility of defeat. His communications officer, a young HFY named Reltak, looked at him with frightened eyes. "High Commander, we have lost 60 ships. Our formation is collapsing. The humans fight like animals. They have no discipline, no organization. Our tactical computers cannot predict their movements." Zaltek stared at the display showing human ships swarming around his fleet like angry insects. "How is this possible? They are primitive. Their technology is inferior." "Perhaps," Reltak said quietly, "but they refuse to fight the way we expect. They break every rule of proper warfare." On the Liberty, Jake received damage reports from across the human fleet. They had lost over 100 ships, but the aliens had lost almost twice as many. More importantly, the rigid HFY fleet structure was falling apart as individual commanders found themselves unable to coordinate with their superiors. Dr. Price's quantum disruptors were working better than anyone had hoped. The aliens' advanced computer systems, so much more sophisticated than human technology, were also more vulnerable to quantum interference. Human ships, with their simpler electronics, could keep fighting even when their fancy equipment failed. The turning point came when Captain Miller's Freedom managed to get close enough to Zalthek's flagship to launch a full spread of quantum disruptor torpedoes. The warheads detonated around the alien command ship, and suddenly every HFY vessel in the fleet lost contact with their high commander. Without central coordination, the alien ships began to retreat toward the edge of the solar system. Individual captains, trained to follow orders rather than think independently, found themselves unable to continue the battle without clear commands from above. Jake couldn't believe what he was seeing. Are they actually running away?" "Admiral," Lewis smiled for the first time in days. "I think they are, Jake. I think we won." High Commander Zalthek's final transmission was filled with rage and confusion. "This is impossible. The Dominion does not retreat. The Dominion does not lose battles," but the facts spoke for themselves. Of the 500 ships that had entered the solar system, fewer than 250 were leaving. The rest were either destroyed or drifting powerless in space. As the alien fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Jake looked around the bridge of the Liberty. His crew was exhausted but alive. Outside, Earth still shone blue and beautiful in the darkness of space. They had done the impossible. Humanity had faced the greatest military power in the galaxy and won. News of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone could have imagined. Within days, every civilized world had heard the impossible story. Earth, a small planet on the edge of known space, had defeated the mighty Kethvar Dominion in open battle. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Empire had retreated in defeat. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in his new office at Earth Defense Command, reading reports from intelligence stations throughout human space. The messages all said the same thing. Alien species everywhere were talking about what had happened at Earth. Some didn't believe it. Others were afraid. But many were asking a question that had not been heard in the galaxy for millennia. If humans could fight back and win, why couldn't they? On the Kethvar capital world of Vaskathol, Emperor Vaskatar sat on his crystal throne in the Great Palace. He was ancient even by Kethvar standards, having ruled for over 3,000 years. In all that time, he had never received a report, like the one High Commander Zaltek was giving him now. "You are telling me that a primitive species defeated our finest fleet?" The Emperor's voice was like ice cracking. Zaltek knelt before the throne, his forearms trembling. "My Emperor, they fought unlike any species we have encountered. They used weapons we had never seen before. Their tactics made no sense. Our computers could not predict their movements. You had 500 ships, Zaltek, the finest vessels in the Dominion fleet. Yes, my Emperor, we lost over half of them." The Emperor was silent for a long time. Around the throne room, other Kethvar nobles whispered among themselves. This was unthinkable. The Dominion had never lost a major battle. Their military power was absolute. "What of the other subject worlds?" the Emperor asked quietly. "Have they heard of this defeat?" A communications officer stepped forward nervously. "My Emperor, the news has reached most of our territory. Some worlds are asking questions." The Emperor's black eyes grew even darker. For 10,000 years, the Kethvar had ruled through fear and the belief that resistance was impossible. Every species they conquered was told the same thing. The Dominion always wins, so why fight? But now that certainty was broken. On the mining world of Krelva, alien workers who had labored in the Dominion's factories for centuries stopped their work to listen to underground radio broadcasts about the human victory. The Krell were a peaceful species who had surrendered without a fight when the Kethvar arrived 3,000 years ago. But now their leaders were meeting in secret, asking dangerous questions. "If these humans could fight back, why did we never try?" asked Elder Krellmon, his tentacles quivering with emotion. "We have always told ourselves that resistance was hopeless. But what if we were wrong?" Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The Zephyrians, who had been conquered 5,000 years ago, began secretly organizing resistance cells. The crystalline Vorthak started hiding weapons in their mining tunnels. Even the peaceful Dalari, who had never fought anyone in their entire history, began asking their leaders why they had accepted slavery so easily. Back on Earth, President Daniel Hayes found himself receiving messages from alien species he had never heard of. They came through secret channels, sent by rebels and freedom fighters who had learned about humanity's victory. One message particularly moved him. It came from a species called the Thylorians, bird-like creatures who had been conquered 800 years ago. "People of Earth," the message said, "you have given us something we thought was lost forever. You have given us hope. We want to learn from you. We want to fight for our freedom too." Dr. Emma Price became the most famous scientist in the galaxy almost overnight. Alien rebels desperately wanted to understand how human technology had defeated Kethvar shields and weapons. She worked day and night, creating simple versions of quantum disruptor technology that other species could build and use. "The key isn't just the technology," she explained to a gathering of Earth's leaders. "It's the thinking behind it. The Kethvar expect everyone to fight the same way they do. When we did something completely different, their whole system fell apart." Admiral Jake Morrison found his new job expanding rapidly. Instead of just defending Earth, he was now coordinating with alien resistance movements across the galaxy. His office became a center for rebels and freedom fighters from dozens of worlds. Captain Bobby Miller, hero of the Battle of Saul, was promoted to admiral and put in charge of humanity's first interstellar diplomatic missions. His ship, the UES Freedom, became a symbol of hope for oppressed species everywhere. But the Kethavar were not sitting idle. Emperor Vaskatar ordered massive military buildups on worlds showing signs of rebellion. Garrison fleets were doubled and tripled. New weapons were developed specifically to counter human tactics. "We will crush these uprisings before they can spread," the Emperor declared to his war council. "The natural order must be restored. The Dominion's authority cannot be questioned." However, it was already too late. The psychological damage was done. For 10,000 years, the Empire had maintained control through the belief that resistance was impossible. Now that belief was shattered, and doubt spread like a virus through the Dominion's territory. The first major rebellion broke out. On the industrial world of Mektar, the local species, called the Builders, had been enslaved for 2,000 years, forced to construct ships and weapons for the Kethvar fleet. But after hearing about humanity's victory, they decided they had built enough tools for their oppressors. The uprising began in the largest factory complex. Builder workers, using tools and equipment they had made for the Dominion, turned their machinery into weapons. They had built Kethvar ships for centuries, so they knew exactly where the weak points were. When Kethvar security forces tried to stop the rebellion, they found themselves facing enemies who understood their technology better than they did. The Builders had been making Kethvar weapons for generations. Now they used that knowledge against their former masters. News of the Mektar rebellion reached other worlds within hours. On Vorthak Prime, crystal miners used their tunneling equipment to attack Dominion outposts. On the water world of Aquanus, the native species used their knowledge of ocean currents to launch surprise attacks on Kethvar bases. Each successful rebellion inspired others. The Kethvar found themselves fighting dozens of separate uprisings across their territory. Their military, designed to conquer new worlds rather than hold rebellious ones, was stretched thin trying to maintain control. Admiral Morrison received a communication from Commander Ryan Torres, who was now leading joint human-alien task forces. "Admiral, we're getting requests for help from resistance movements on over 50 worlds. They want human advisors, human weapons, human tactics." Jake looked at the star map showing the Kethvar Empire. Red dots marked worlds in rebellion. There were more every day. "Ryan, 6 months ago we were just trying to survive. Now we're leading a galactic revolution." The final blow to Kethvar authority came when High Commander Zalthak himself defected to the human cause. Disgusted by the Empire's brutal response to the rebellions, he brought with him detailed information about Dominion military positions and tactics. "Your species has shown the galaxy something we forgot long ago," he told Jake during their first meeting. "You showed us that freedom is worth fighting for, no matter the odds." President Hayes stood before the United Earth Council, addressing not just humanity but representatives from 37 alien species who had joined the growing rebellion. The meeting was broadcast across the galaxy, reaching even the most remote worlds of the Dominion. 6 months ago, Earth faced annihilation, Hayes said. "We could have surrendered. We could have accepted slavery. Instead, we chose to fight, not because we knew we could win, but because some things are more important than survival." He looked directly into the camera, knowing his words were being heard on worlds he had never seen, by species he had never met. "To every being listening who lives under oppression, remember this. The only prison that cannot be broken is the one you build in your own mind. The Kethvar Dominion ruled through fear and the lie that resistance was hopeless. We proved that lie wrong. Now it's your turn." Admiral Morrison watched from Earth as the Kethvar Empire continued to shrink. Their borders, unchanged for thousands of years, were contracting for the first time in recorded history. Worlds that had been part of the Dominion since before humans discovered fire were declaring their independence. Standing at his office window, looking up at the stars, Jake smiled. Earth's defiance had not just saved humanity, it had lit a fire of freedom that was burning across the entire galaxy. The age of the Kethvar Dominion was ending, and a new age of liberty was beginning among the stars.